Welcome to the Engerati studio live at European Utility Week. I'm Rose and I'm joined now by Jarkko Jukarainen, Vice President of Business Development of Utilytics at Enoro. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. So this time last year, you introduced Utilytics at the event. What's kind of happened in that past year in terms of deployment and customer interest?
Yes, right after the launch we were able to publicize our first reference customers, and now we've gone into production status with the service and a number of customers, and we've also extended the use case that we have for different market roles. So we have service available for the retailer, for the DSO, and for the balance responsible party. And in the case of Nordics, also for the Nordic district heating companies. And the service has taken a good start, and we're developing it constantly.
You've obviously got a few competitors in that field. What's making Utilytics stand out?
I think it's the fact that it's a productized service, and we seek to enable all utilities to gain benefits from analytics, and it's been well perceived in the market.
Okay. Could you tell us a bit more about the grid operator point of view of analytics?
Yeah, the grid operators typically look at more of the technical use cases. If it's the grid management and the grid optimization use cases, they have been doing that for a number of years, but definitely now with the big data and analytics, it's becoming even more available and faster, and there's been development in that area. So that is one of the points that we have taken in and are continuously developing.
Okay. You obviously operate in the Nordics. Can you give us an overview of the utility space in that region at the moment?
Yeah, definitely there's more interest, more widespread interest towards analytics, and a number of companies have already started using analytics or have done experiments. And we've seen the largest utilities, they've built their data warehouses and they have their generic BI teams. They do that for capturing enterprise-wide data, and it's mostly for more precise reporting and some analytics use cases. And then what we're seeing is that retailers especially are more looking into the financial side of analytics in revenue, cash flow, customer churn rate analysis, and those use cases are beneficial for all the utility companies out there. And for the DSOs, they, like I said, they're more technically oriented in their viewpoint, and they look at, for example, reducing outages in the grid. They look at reducing operating expenses, and they look at improving ROI through the business planning and analytics as a scenario enabler.
How do markets differ from each other when it comes to possibilities for utilizing analytics?
It really depends on the market. It depends on the availability of smart metering and the rollouts in those, and also the market dynamics, deregulation status and so forth. But clearly all market areas seem to be picking up on this, and it's been stated that the US is perhaps leading by 1 year and Europe is lacking, but what we're seeing is that there's European companies that have made great things with analytics, and we're definitely picking up. Some of the pioneering markets like Finland are definitely embracing this. And the use cases differ as well. If you look at use cases like revenue protection, which is to analyze network losses in the grid and the actual theft from the power lines, that is more relevant in some use cases in some areas, but then in the Nordics at least, it's the retailers who've picked up and looked at things like customer segmentation, customer churn rate, profitability, and so on.
Yeah, and how well are customers actually responding, the end users?
The end users, if I look at our production customers, what they use for customer engagement type of things, in our service what we have is a multi-dimensional, near real-time customer segmentation. And what that allows the utility to do is to look at their own customer base in detail and get like a live picture of what's happening there. And they use that to target the customer groups or individual customers even. And they do it for really specific targeted sales and marketing campaigns. And the intent of that is to improve the campaign efficiency and make sure that the utility sends a personalized message to the end consumer. So the energy consumer gets less of the mass market, non-relevant communications from the utility.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been quite a lot of talk of bringing the consumer, the customer back into the conversation.
Yeah, more consumer.
So would you say in the Nordics you're kind of doing that quite well?
This is already happening. Yeah.
Okay. So stumbling blocks for bringing in analytics to utilities. There's always the IT/OT integration issue. Is that still a concern?
Yeah, analytics is a combination of the business-related expertise and the mathematics-related expertise and the IT exercise. So pulling that exercise together has traditionally been complex and a costly one. So that still remains so, but it is changing because there's been great advances in computing technology, big database, and the cloud computing areas make it more affordable to do big data analysis, and it's also faster and more, if you will, productized nowadays. So the stumbling block of the complexity is going away. If I then think of some of the remaining ones, obviously the company culture at utilities, if they did operate in a less competed space, in say, for example, a near monopoly type of area for some of the market players, then there was perhaps less need for continuous improvement operations and business planning in terms of analysis. And even though they've done that, obviously, but the market is changing, there's deregulation, and the consumer-centric market drives all the utilities to look at ways to improve their own business and thinking, and analytics is helping that. And then one of the stumbling blocks is the, if you will, lack of data, but with the smart meters, there is data we need to analyze.
Is it?
I think the last thing is there was a lack of productized offering in the market. So it was a do-it-yourself exercise, and it was reserved for the largest companies because of the cost and complexity. So now, with us and our dear competitors providing more productized offering and service, then this becomes available for the medium and even the small-sized utilities.
Is data quality an issue?
It remains an issue even after the smart meter rollouts. We do have a use case in the service for data quality assurance, and it's actually being used by our production customers because they verify and validate that the meter readings are correct. So there's lots of communications, obviously, and lots of time series data being transmitted, and you need to be able to validate that it's correct.
So I understand even for an energy company that hasn't completely digitized its metering network, there is still a lot of value that can be extracted from analog data. Would you say that's true?
Yes, that is true. And if you look at data analysis, as long as there's data, it can be crunched, and more and more utilities are doing so.
I was chatting this morning about the kind of where data sits within a utility, and some utilities are wanting to kind of bring that more in-house by getting data scientists on board, and do you kind of see that happening a bit in the market?
It used to be so a number of years ago, and a lot of the larger companies did build their data warehouses. And what we're seeing is that these large companies are now looking at ways to, if you will, utilize the data more effectively. And one area is cloud computing. The cost of big data analysis and cloud analytics has gone down, and it's actually, if you will, more effective in the cloud. So you can get cost benefits and operational benefits from running it in the cloud. So people are perhaps moving away from the generic enterprise data warehouses and looking at more application-oriented use cases.
Yeah. So do you think DSOs are aware that the future is now software as opposed to their hardware?
Software will play an increasingly growing part of this, and it's been estimated that some 34 billion USD will be invested into smart grid data analytics alone by year 2020. So it's definitely something that the DSOs are interested in and investing into.
Thank you, Jarkko, for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. And you can catch more of the interviews from European Utility Week on the Engerati YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.